Well, that was certainly another episode where a lot happened. A lot.
You feel the time force growing. It's working. Just as we planned.
Hello, I'm Phil. Welcome to my channel where I like to talk about all the geeky pop culture that I like and consume, including I like a lot of Doctor Who. But we're going to be reviewing the finale of... Not the finale. It's not the finale yet. What am I talking about? It's the penultimate episode of Doctor Who Flux, Chapter 5, Survivors of the Flux. There was a lot going on in this episode. There was some speculation beforehand that because the Doctor got turned into a weeping angel beforehand, that would mean that... in the end of the last episode, that would mean that this would be a Doctor Light episode. That didn't come to pass, and I'm quite glad, because we have a limited amount of Jodie left as the Doctor, and she has had, in terms of episode count, a shorter run than some other Doctors, so I'm quite glad that we're not using up this time without her, and that we do get her quite involved in this episode. However, very separate from the other storylines that are going on, and there are a lot of storylines going on. Very similar to episode 3 in that sense, chapter 3, but in a much more coherent, I would say, way than episode 3, and I could follow it a lot more easier than I could that episode. And I generally don't think there was there wasn't even a weak section of this. I liked it all. The Bell and Vinder stuff, maybe marginally weaker than the rest, but still quite enjoyed it. Yeah, everything about this episode I really liked. Yaz and Dan stuck in the past. They've been there for 3 years now, and their whole story is this like globe-trotting Indiana Jones style adventurer. They've got the professor with them. What was his name? I've forgotten already. Professor Jericho with them, and they're tomb raiding to find clues on pots. They are going on transatlantic ferry rides. They're going to Istanbul and almost getting blown up. They are going to Tibetan hermits up in the mountains to get messages. They're completely globe-trotting Indiana Jones style, and I think it really works. The one thing, I don't think they gave us much of a indication of how this 3 years has changed them in any way. Apart from maybe a little bit where there was a nice moment in the cabin where Yaz has a hologram of the Doctor. It was a really sweet moment as she sort of watches this hologram that the Doctor had recorded for her beforehand, and you can see the sadness on her face about what's gone on. They both say they miss each other in that thing. It's all very sweet. But I would kind of wanted something from Dan as well. How has this affected the man that has literally just been thrown into this world? I was kind of hoping that there'd be something there about that. But what there was in these scenes was a lot of comedy, right from the Mexican temple heist, where the pulley system comedy of Jericho and Dan being on either ends of a pulley and falling, and that was funny. I enjoyed that. But the highlight of the comedy in this bit was it's got to be the Tibetan monk guy, or the Tibetan hermit. Is that where they were? Were they in Tibet at that point? I lose track. There were so many subtitles of place names in this episode. Wherever they were up in some mountains. And the guy up there who's constantly pulling their leg, telling them stuff, and they're going, I'm just pulling your leg. That guy was hilarious. He was brilliant. Also on the Indiana Jones vibe, it's not just temple raiding that they've got going on. They've got like fights while being accosted by spies or whatever, and somebody trying to murder them that's posing to be from serving them tea, and then he suddenly goes into killing them as an assassin. That's straight out of something like, again, Indiana Jones or maybe James Bond, something like that. Kind of had that kind of feel to it. That was really good. And Jericho as well in this episode. Well, we did maybe we didn't see quite as much from him in the scene. He had some really good lines last week, and some really good character moments. Here, he was still great, and the comedy from him was really good, but he didn't have any. Last week he had some really strong moments where we really saw kind of what he stood for, and when he faces what he's about, when he faces down the angels and challenges them. We didn't get anything like that from him this episode, but there was a lot to jam pack in, and I'm I'm okay with this section being predominantly exposition-y stuff and also comedy. I like that. Then we get the Serpent, who has arrived on Earth. He starts off in the first scene playing or doing some shooting with a posh-sounding, aristocratic-sounding guy. And it turns out that this guy is in the 1960s, I think it was. And they are putting together. He's been charged with this aristocratic guy's been charged with putting together some kind of task force, or the British branch of a task force linked to the United Nations, which obviously is going to be UNIT at this point. And so we see the Serpent there getting in on the ground of the origins of UNIT and being involved right from the very start, which is interesting. And throughout the episode we see him pop up at multiple different time periods. So he eventually, 10 years later, he's firmly embedded in UNIT, and still chummy with that colonel that sets it up. There's a brief reference to or a hint that Lethbridge Stewart is somewhere around as a colonel. There's a reference back to the episode with the police box towers. What's that episode called? What's that story called? The War Machines, isn't it? It's the War Machines. Is this one? There's a reference back to this one. So there were some nice references in there. He ends up killing that colonel guy, but still seemingly further embedding himself. He obviously has time travel. We still don't really know how he's going to play into the finale here. He's on Earth. He's linked to the Sontaran event. What's his motivation? Why is he on Earth at this point? What's going on with him? Is he part of this bigger Flux thing? Is he linked to Gallifrey in some way? Or is he just some kind of opportunistic former emperor that's worlds have been destroyed with the Flux and he's ended up on Earth and is trying to take advantage of the situation? Be interesting to find out in the next episode. But yeah, he goes through the history. We get into I think it's the 70s or something, where he then assassinate someone else who's stopping him being part of the oversight committee of UNIT. And then we get a more modern day thing from a few years ago where it transpires that he is partly responsible for shutting UNIT down, and that is why they've had these issues. And why UNIT has been gone the last few years. We have him having a meeting with Kate. She calls him out on it, basically says, I think you're an alien, and if you don't stop this, I'm going to expose you. And then he plants a bomb in her house and almost kills her, and she goes dark. Which, if she's been dark this whole time, how does that fit in with Time Fracture? Time Fracture, the immersive theatre event currently running in London, all the promo material had Kate talking about how there was a Black Ops ex-UNIT base, because UNIT was now defunded, but she was still working for some kind of civil service. So I don't think the continuities are going to quite mix up here, but never mind. But it was great to see her again, see Kate being pretty badass as well. Looking forward to seeing how she's involved in the next episode as well, and maybe relaunches UNIT. Be good to see. Osgood got a name check. She called her on the phone to tell her she was going dark, but we didn't see Osgood. That's a shame. But the Serpent, it turns out, is in league with the Sontarans as well, which then leads into the bigger cliffhanger, which all culminates at once. In most of the plot lines, in fact, apart from the Doctors. So we'll do the Doctors last. But Yaz, Dan, and I've forgotten his name again. Why do I keep forgetting his name? Jericho. It's such a unique name. How do I keep forgetting it? They're on the ship, travelling transatlantically on this cruise ship. And Williamson, the guy that built the tunnels, that we've been wondering how this all connects up, bursts in to their room and is like, oh, right, I'm on the boat. And then leaves again. And they're like, what? And they try and go out the door that he just went out, but it just leads to the corridor. He's disappeared. So they go to Liverpool, go into the tunnels and find him in there. And as he explains that these tunnels have all these different doors which lead to different places. They used to lead to different times on Earth, but now they've changed and now they lead to all sorts of horrible places where death happens. They start rattling and the Sontarans burst in, because that is the culmination of that bit of the Sontaran story. The Sontaran thing is kind of linked, as I said, across multiple storylines. Bel and Vinda. Bel almost meets up with Vinda because they're at this, what looks like the Citadel from Gallifrey, floating in space. Kind of broken, burnt, Don't know if it is, but it looks like it. But just as she's about to land on it, the Carvanista recalls his one Lipari ship that she had stolen to help seal up Earth again because one of their ships has drifted off. So she gets kind of hyperdrived away, and Vindera turns up like 2 seconds later, just missing each other. And he encounters Azure and Swarm, who are converting people into energy to help them build a bridge to get to the Division. So let's talk about the big revelations for the Doctor's story, because I liked what I saw. It disproved some theories I had had previously. I had a previous video suggesting that maybe the Doctor is Tecteun. It is not. The mysterious woman is Tecteun. So there we go. That solved it. I had a video a few weeks ago saying maybe this is her mum. Or maybe it's Tecteun. It's kind of both. I mean, it's her adoptive mum, it is Tecteun, but it's not her biological mum. I did feel like the whole turning into a weeping angel thing was kind of brushed away a little bit too quickly. It's like, oh, you're a weeping angel, now you're not. Oh, we're just going to turn you back in. Oh, it was just a transport method. You're not really a weeping angel. So I get why they needed to do it. There was so much more to do in this episode. Probably would have been a waste of time dedicating a whole chunk of it to doing something to escape from being a weeping angel, but it was a shame that it kind of felt a bit quick. So we find out in this scene pretty much that everything the Master said was actually true. Quelle surprise. And this is Tecteun, the mysterious woman is Tecteun, that she did find the Doctor, that she did take the regeneration from her and gave it to the rest of the Gallifreyans, and that she was involved in setting up Division. And Division, something the Doctor used to work for, has been tasked with manipulating the universe, and originally started on Gallifrey but expanded beyond that and presumably split off from Gallifrey at some point because the Time Lords went on to have non-interference policies. Division seems to have split itself away, found this little space between universes to set up that they are now in and operate from there. And they are the ones that set off the Flux. They are the ones that released Azure and Swarm, or released Swarm so he could go free Azure. And they're the big bad, we think. Until Azure and they've got the Doctor's memories hanging in a little fob watch, of course. So the Doctor is very close to finding out her memories. I did really like the confrontation between the two of them, between Tecteun and the Doctor. That kind of built up resentment. Jodie Whittaker was really on form with this scene, I think. The way, the kind of venom in her eyes, the hurt at what this woman had done and what she was doing to the universe as well. I thought Jodie played a blinder on this scene. It was really good. Tecteun also offers her the chance to get her memories back and rejoin Division and come with them to the next universe. But obviously, the Doctor's not going to let the universe be destroyed. There's a moment of temptation on her face when Tecteun throws in Earth and says, "I'll save Earth." Not sure how she would save Earth, but maybe they'll bring Earth with them to the next universe. I don't know, but she offers that, but still, the Doctor still says no. Then Azure and Swarm turn up and kill Tecteun. And what's going to happen next week? That Tecteun's plan has massively backfired on herself now, hasn't it? Because she was the one that freed them in the first place. So, well, what's going to happen next? Let's find out next week. Exciting times. So we end with the Sontarans invading Earth, with the help of the Serpent, with the Doctor stranded between universes, with Azure and Swarm looking like he's literally just about to kill her, and the Doctor's memories hanging literally by a chain just a few meters away from her. It's going to be an exciting finale. I'm really looking forward to finding out how they're going to wrap this up. It's all going to hinge on that ending, because if they don't wrap it up in a satisfying way, it's going to slightly tar the rest of it. But I would say this episode, really enjoyed it. Possibly my favourite one so far. It did a much better job of containing so many storylines, but more coherently than maybe episode 3 did. And it's got me very excited for the finale. What do you think? Did you like this episode? Let me know in the comments below. And I'll be back next week for the finale of Doctor Who Flux. See you then. Goodbye.